did archaeology, and this was originally a dirt floor. And they uncovered many artifacts down here. Some of them were alcohol making objects. Jacob Dritt, I don't know if I mentioned, he's one of the main suppliers of alcohol to York and Lancaster County. It was written that he shipped alcohol up and down this river, and he also sold alcohol out of a tavern in York City. So he's pretty well known from that and his military service, you could say. Right.
They go hand in hand.
So they found alcohol making tools, supplies down here. We found a reference in actually a letter that for someone's funeral, Jacob Dritt had provided the wine. So it's interesting to see that. Just one little note, right, in the diary or a letter.
Were these found on the property?
So, good question. They were not.
Okay, I just thought
So I put them there to talk about the fact that so this structure that you see here looks like to us a bench, right? But this was actually this is a replica of the parts of the original that were here, found in the cellar when the house was restored. So this is actually a place where bottles would be stuck in here, alcohol, kind of like our wine racks of today, right? So this is kind of like the old-fashioned wine rack.
Wow.
And there would then be boxes full of alcohol bottles here on the bench. So,
definitely was.
So this is a replica of what was originally here down in the cellar.
Wow. And where's that from? Does that go outside, or is it just?
Good question. So this is where we hide our nice little electricity and water and all our fun little things.
Okay.
So
It looked like it went
not too
outside.
much
I thought
to
the
see.
same
So
thing.
it does extend back, and there is one more window.
I had a stash back there.
But yeah, so the Zimmermans, 1998, they put in our modern luxuries, which was very
Awesome.
nice of them.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions? We can head on up.
I just have a comment before
Yeah.
we go up into how things starts. You do an amazing job. You've had an answer for all of our questions.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate
So,
that.
yeah, we asked a lot of questions, so
I've
really
been
nice
here for
job.
4 years, and we really try to learn as much as we can. We're always learning. Like I said, like that little note about Jacob and the wine, we just found that a few months ago.
Oh,
Wow. We're always finding something new to share, and we've also heard a lot of questions over the years. So, so you've not surprised me yet.
So you started right before COVID.
Yes.
Before COVID.
So remember coming up the stairs at the one part, watch your head and go.
With your big feet, we don't use hardly a step. Oh, that's where I was supposed to go.
I lifted a rudder for something. Interesting. So she said they would have taken stuff out through here, through this bulkhead, out to the river. And I'm not sure, I don't think that's an original boat, but I'm gonna head up now. Oh no. Gotta watch my head there, it's a low ceiling there. Alrighty. Oh boy. Alrighty.
The drip family had a little setup right here with the hand-painted colonial flag on it. And I think that also shows us how proud they were of being American and of the colonies and of their father having served. It's interesting to see, and you will find the number of colonies of the little squares there.
Wow.
Thanks for joining me. Let me know if you have any questions, and feel free to take part in the other festivities today.
Thank you. I want to come back again.
And that they did own part of that landscape.
Is this house still up there? Is it a little cabin?
No, yeah, and it's the same for the log cabin that was here, that's now the parking lot. life moves on, modernization, and those buildings get lost. The house itself has not changed too much from its original structure, so this really is a well-preserved mansion on the hill. And when we look out at the river, we have such a similar view to what they had. You know, the river is a little different in that it's deeper than it was back then. We have the hydroelectric dam that has changed the water level, but it's the same river and such a similar view. And I think that's amazing that we get to see something very similar to what they did when they were here, people visiting or the families living here. We can move to the hallway. Oh wow! So we do. That's one of the paintings in our art collection. It's the most. I like to say it's our most unique dystopic painting. So it is meant to showcase the artist's interpretation of the devastation of Hurricane Agnes. The eye of the storm is what looks like that spaceship up there. So it's meant to be the eye of the storm. You can see, of course, some of the devastation to the houses around here, as well as the man in the river is meant to represent some of the graves that were unearthed due to Hurricane Agnes and the high water level.
I gotta ask about the angel and the donkey.
The artist had his unique interpretation.
Okay. I would have never guessed that's what that was all about.
So if we come to the hallway here, I like to point out that so this floor itself is not original. However, the staircase is, as well as the second floor and the attic where we'll be going to. So much of this building has been preserved and is original. You can see on the staircase here that the spindles that we have here going up on the staircase there in the English style. This is a very English house for a German family. So the Meyer family, when they first have the house built, they are a German family, and they have many German, many parts of their German heritage are reflected in the architecture, but also the English style, because it appears they liked the English style of the tall 10-foot ceilings that we see here, and of the banister itself, but we're going to see a lot of German elements as well of the family's heritage. So I like to point that out because before we go upstairs, because it's going to look a lot different on the second floor. So if you want to follow me up the stairs, just be careful as it does curve and use the handrail.
Now, these are real plaster walls.
Yes.
Has it been patched with lime water, or do you know?
You know, it has been patched, you know, different places where it's needed over time. Just wait till everything comes up. Okay, looks like that's everyone. So now you will see our banister looks a lot different, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
This is the German style spindle that would be in German homes. So believe it or not, you brought with you, you know, what the things that you remembered, and even down to the architectural styles. So it's common to see that a German family brings what they remember, even down to their heating systems in their culture. So you may notice that we are using these rooms at the moment as our offices for our overall nonprofit, but they would have been the family's bedrooms. Very large rooms. You're welcome to come and take a look.
Oh my word.
You'll notice that the floorboards are very wide and they're much darker wood than downstairs. Many of them are original.
I know.
You may notice if you saw the fireplace downstairs, not the one that Barb is cooking in, but the other one, in comparison to this one that you can see here, it's far more fancy downstairs than it is upstairs. This is the private areas for the family, a little less fancy, and it's possible that they might have rented rooms to people for the night if this place was more like a tavern. And you can see that painted board right there that's boarding up the fireplace. That is original. So we have some original parts of the house that are still here with us.
Oh, I just want to sit here and read a book.
I know.
I want a room like this.
Did they have many accidents when the ferries as far as taking larger items
Good
over there,
question.
they fall over and
Good question. You know, this river is it is very treacherous, dangerous even today, there are different accounts that have been written. I won't say specific to the Blue Rock Ferry. We haven't found accounts specific to this ferry about those incidents or accidents, but they happened, and it's a dangerous river. And yet to think that it was such a common practice for people to travel this way, and yet there was a danger part to it as well. But yes, you know, wagons tip over, items fall out, horses maybe get spooked, you know, it absolutely did happen. Absolutely.
Well, and I'm thinking even just, like, I like to kayak out here, but I'm thinking, you know, there's times where it's not safe to do that. So depending on water level and the rocks and,
Yeah.
wow.
Absolutely. And I will say then, so Jacob Dritt, who I showed you that photo of and who managed the Blue Rock Ferry, he loses his life to this river, to your point. So Jacob Dritt in 1817, it's December, a few days before Christmas, and he has a companion with him, and they row across over to Lancaster. And it's a few days before Christmas, like I said, he gets some money out of his bank. I think it's interesting, he chooses to have his bank in Lancaster and not York. I think it shows how connected also our two towns are, that he has to cross the river to get money out of the bank. He could have chosen to have it here, and yet he chooses to have it in Lancaster. That he has to cross the river to go get money out. So I think that shows how connected our towns still were, even with the river in between. So he crosses over with his companion rowing, gets money out of his bank in Lancaster. He meets his second oldest son. Their oldest son, a few years before, had lost his life also to this river. So it was that the first family, the Meyer family, who has this grand home built, lived there until their mansion was finished. And that was a common practice. So we know a lot less about the Meyer family than we do the other families that lived in this home. But they choose to build a home here because they manage the ferry boat that takes passengers from one side of the river to the other side and back. So transportation across the river connecting our two counties was by ferry boat through the 1700s. The first bridge in our area up toward where the Veterans Memorial Bridge is today was built in 1814, the first bridge there. That's the entire 1700s and early 1800s that people's main way of crossing this river is on a ferry boat. Because our stretch of river here is particularly wide, as it has always been, makes it a good place of crossing. It makes it a place of calmer water. Before the steep drop happens downriver where there were wicked rapids, fast-moving water. So this is a good place to cross. There were 4 ferry boats on our stretch of river here. The ferry that was managed by all the families that lived in this house was called the Blue Rock Ferry, that was named after a rock that had a blue color in the river today. Here is what that ferry boat looks like. A long, flat bottom boat, and yes, horses and carriages were put on this ferry boat and would be taken across. So supplies, families, horses and carriages, wagons of people heading out west. They're taking the Philadelphia wagon road to head out west. The crossing, they have to cross Susquehanna to take that trail. The crossing is right on our stretch of river here. So they're either going across the river on their own if it's shallow enough, or they're taking a ferry boat.
That still looks more water-worthy than the Millersburg ferry does now.
I have heard that. You're not the first person to say that. You can see the two men rowing across, and the wagon on there as well. So this is a painting of the Wrights Ferry, which was one of the ferries on our river, and the Blue Rock Ferry, while there's no painting of it, it looked like this as well.
McCall's Ferry would have looked the same way too.
Yes, exactly. So this really was people's main way of crossing the river. You can imagine, records say that anywhere from 150 wagons to 200 wagons of families would be arriving every day in Columbia to cross this river. You could be waiting in your wagon to cross a day or two before it would be your turn. People want to get together, gather for the holidays. You can imagine waiting in a line to cross this river. To do that, other than that, you would have to either go, if you wanted to not take a ferry boat, if you wanted to take a bridge, the closest bridge is up in Harrisburg, and you have a long way to travel to go up there to cross at that time. So there was a bridge in Harrisburg. But for many people, this was a common experience crossing this river in this way. There was a toll, yeah. So that's how the family that lives here making their money, right? To take people and supplies across and back. As well as what's a good type of building to have at the end of a ferry boat. When you get off the ferry boat, you want to have a place to get supplies and a place to get goods, maybe even a tavern, right? That's what this building was, in addition to being a home for the family that lived here. The Meyer family, it appears they used the whole first floor as a place, as a general store of supplies, where people would be coming in the front door here, and they would get leather goods. We know that there were a lot of leather found in this room. Other items, there's game playing, there's food being eaten in here. So we really have to look at the archaeology and what it tells us about how each room was used. Because they found over 40,000 artifacts in this house alone. Because this house sat vacant here from about the late 1800s through 1998 until the house was restored. So this house really has quite a long history and has been preserved, that we are able to use these the artifacts and the house itself to learn more about the people who lived here. It appears when the second family who lives here, the Dritt family, who we know a lot more about the second family. The first family, John Meyer, the Meyer family, he was a merchant. He had lived most of his life at sea before he decides he wants to settle along the Susquehanna River and manage the ferry boat business, have a general store on the first floor here. He passes away, and the family decides they're going to sell the house and move to Lancaster. Jacob Dritt, he is the second owner of this house. This man right here, this gentleman. His story I often think of almost like the American dream. He grows up as the first generation in his family born here. His parents immigrated here from Switzerland, and they live on a family farmstead, a small plot of land about where Lomont Farms and High Point County Park is today. Part of that land was his family farmstead. He grows up there and is the oldest in his family, and he lives much of his life in a one-room log cabin on that property. He grows up, he serves in the Revolutionary War in the militia, he becomes a general, and as you can see, he serves as a young man, but here he is as an older gentleman, still wearing his military uniform. He was very proud of having served in the Revolutionary War. He is known in the area for his military service. When he walks into the room, people say, "Oh, the general," when he walks in. So he has a personality, he has a presence. So the war ends and he comes home, he marries his wife Elizabeth, and they purchase this house and property and take over the ferry boat business. And they then decide that the general store will be in the front 2 rooms here instead of the whole first floor. So just this room, and the other room is the general store part where people can pick up their goods and supplies, and then the other rooms are the private rooms for the family. You'll see in the hallway that there's 2 doors separating the areas of the private rooms for the family and the public rooms. And we'll also go upstairs into the attic and the cellar. You know, this man, he grows up in a one-room log cabin, lives there much of his life, and then one day gets to own this grand mansion, marry his wife Elizabeth, have 11 children that all grow up here. Most of them live to adulthood, and he becomes a very successful businessman.
Is that cemetery at the top? That family?
It is.
Okay.
It is. The family cemetery of the Dritt family is on the hill behind here along what's now Native Lands County Park. So they do have their family cemetery here. Let's see, what else do I want to?
Do they still own the lot farms up
They
there?
do not,
Yeah.
no. So it is, so the family property was eventually sold, and now Wilmot Farms and High Point have no connection to the Dritt family. But when you look at the original tracts of land, there is a fireplace. There's an identical one on the other side as well. So the home was heated with 2 fireplaces, and you may notice it looks a little different than our normal fireplaces, right, that are on a corner. This was made to be on a curve, and this was how it was specially built to be this way. A fireplace like this, like that we see in many of our homes today, this is actually the English style way of heating your house. So people coming from England, this is what they are used to. So that's what they bring with them. People from Germany, they bring their different heating style, which is a 5-plate stove. Well, you can see there is a hole here. If you come to where I'm standing, you can see the hole. And that is where a 5-plate stove would sit into there, so that would heat the other room. So it is really smart. And this actually is common for the time as an architectural feature, but we don't have a lot of homes like these that still have survived. So many people think it's unique, but really this was a common practice for large homes like this. The tavern in York and other buildings look identical to this in the area. So you would set a fire in here, that's going to start to warm the 5-plate stove that was connected, and we can go see where that was.
Santa's workshop.
Here's the back of the fireplace.
There's a whole bunch of folks making tin ornaments as well.
That would look like this. It'd
So
be
this
big
is
and
the,
metal like that.
The
That's
fi-
what it would look like. And it would be sit right into here and be connected right here. So you could put hot coals in there or heat the plates that were in there. It wasn't typically used for cooking, it's in here, essentially. So it would be connected to the wall there. So if you have hot coals, you can put them in there. It's going to generate smoke. It's going to go out through the pipe and then out through the chimney. So really inventive. Some German families, they only have a hot fireplace to heat their house. Homes like this, you have one attached to the back of your fireplace. There were 4 of them in this house.
Wow.
For both families. So I like to think the house was fairly warm in the winter.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to explain about the fireplace and the heating. But we'll also jump down to the cellar here.
Now we're heading down to the sun.
Oh, wow, we're gonna have to stop. I'm gonna have to stop. Family fun. Oh my God, wow.
Duck.
So nice and solid.
Yeah.
So take your time.
So another question while we're all coming down here. So where did the name Zimmerman come from?
Good question. Yes. So our house has had different names over the years. We do sometimes still call it Dritt Mansion. That's what it was known as because the Dritt family was so well known. Jacob, the father, was so well known in the area. And for a long time it was thought that the Dritt family had built this house, but we now know that's not true. The Dritt family was the second family that lived here. So you may hear the house referred to as Dritt Mansion. We renamed it the Zimmerman Center because we are using the house as a visitor center. And when we started essentially our nonprofit, we were starting out, and John and Catherine Zimmerman are the couple that restored the house. So we have named it for them essentially. So John and Catherine, they were lovers of history. They would spend their time by the river like many of us, and they own the cottage next door. And like many people over the years, they pass by this big grand stone mansion and it's just sitting here vacant. No one's restoring it. It's just sitting here. There's no running water, no heat, no electricity. It is sitting here just like it has been for 200 years more. So being lovers of history, they decided to purchase the property and had the means and ability to restore it. And they did. So we're very grateful, thanks to them. We came to know them because they were the aunt and uncle of one of our board members, former Governor Wolf. So they are.
I knew that name. Tom's my neighbor.
Oh, okay.
Like, wait a minute, where's this coming from?
There
Okay,
you go.
all right.
So they're his aunt and uncle, and he said, I think my aunt and uncle might rent us a room in their new renovated house. Because they restored this to be a home for their daughter as a wedding gift, she decided she wanted to stay in Lancaster. And so now they have this big grand mansion that they had just restored.
Darn, to turn that down.
We rented one room, the room facing the river, from the Zimmermans for about 3 years. They called us one day and said, we want to donate you the house and the property. We want it to be a visitor center. We want people to be able to come and learn about the site's history and connect with the history of the river. And that was from one gift. Everything has snowballed into what we are able to do today. So it's a great story, and we're very thankful to them. So that's why we've named the house Zimmerman Center for them. Down here in the cellar, it's a vaulted cellar. That means we see this half circle here. To build this, it took a lot of work. The workers created a big mound of dirt that was essentially the mold. Oh.
The ceiling falls down.
The mold for this was a big mound of dirt. and then they laid the stonework on top. Then they had to dig out all that dirt.
Wow.
A lot of work.
No man on the totem pole gets that job. Like,
So then they actually, believe it or not, they took all that dirt and laid it on top of the stonework. So today our house is sitting on the cellar as well as the dirt that formed the cellar.
Wow.
So it's interesting. This of course was like a root cellar. It's where like an old refrigerator, keeping cool the goods and items that the family is selling, preserving for the winter for themselves. Of course, it would have been a little darker in here, believe it or not, because we have a nice electricity today, but we have one window.
that's the window, that was their light.
That is your light. So it would have been a lot darker in here, you can imagine. The goods also supply, the goods and supplies that are being sold in the general store, they're being stored in here until they're taken upstairs. So they can get them off the boat, come to here to the double doors, and come down the stairs and put them right in here. There is a hook. There's a few original hooks. That's one of them. And that's for hanging meat. So they're hanging meat to preserve down in here.
So I hope you enjoyed this holiday open house here at the Zimmerman Center here. There's the Grit Mansion, as it's known, or the Zimmerman Center for Heritage here, located along the Susquehanna River down in Wrightsville, PA. We are in still Wrightsville. And as you can see right behind me, there's the sign for the Heritage Center. This is also part of the Susquehanna National Heritage Area as well. Captain John Smith Chesapeake National Historic Site as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. I surely enjoyed it. I've been on this tour before, but the last time I went on this tour, we didn't get to go up to the attic. So finally I got to go up to the attic, and you got to go to the attic with me and see that, as well as the vaulted cellar. I went on to the cellarway the last time, but this time we went to both up and down. So again, I hope you enjoyed this tour, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and as always, go create your own adventure, and I'll see you at the next location.